Good afternoon. How are you going, Shreen?
I'm good, thanks. How are you going today, Anna?
Really well. Thank you again for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We had such a nice chat last week, and I know that you've got lots of things to share on this week's topic. I want to ask you first, so just so our community know a little more about you, tell us about your why you're so passionate about a non-diet approach and a health at every size approach, and it's something that's so different to traditional diet and gym culture. So tell us a little more about that and why it's so important to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually, during my own recovery from my own eating disorders, when I found the Health at Every Size book by Jes Baker, and when I was reading it, it was almost like reading my own story, you know, my own dieting history. And it was the first time that I didn't feel so alone, and I didn't feel like such a failure with everything that had been going on. And it's the first time that things started to make sense as well. And yeah, it was just such a game changer for my whole recovery and the journey that I went on from there. And you know, that's why I'm so passionate about sharing a health at every size approach as well with my clients, and also because you know, my own experiences of weight loss, also my clients' experiences with weight loss and things, I can't ethically do that because I just know that it's a 95 to 98% failure rate, and you know, focusing on weight loss is never really a positive outcome. And whereas if we focus on other healthful behaviors, it's going to be a lot more beneficial long run for our health, and yeah, it's just a lot more positive. And so that's why I'm really passionate about health at every size and the non-diet approach.
Sounds great. And I think you've hit the nail on the head when you said it about it not really being ethical pursuing weight loss. And I think that's what a lot of us in this field really feel too. So many of us have had that lived experience, and we've done a lot of, you know, research and courses and studied with other professionals and learnt a lot about why it doesn't work. And so, yeah, I feel like that too. Like ethically, there is no way I could ever go and work from a weight-centric or traditional gym culture kind of model.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And the other thing I just want to say, just for everyone listening, is that it's such an amazing community as well, the non-diet community and the health at every size world. And I think community is such an important part as well as our recovery journey and, you know, our mental health. And so I think just really getting stuck into the whole HAES community and non-diet community is amazing. And that's something that I'm really passionate about as well. And that community's really helped me.
Yeah, I agree too. And I think when you move into that kind of community in comparison to the focus on weight loss and diet culture, there's this real kind of warmth and real compassion and this real, you know, supporting each other and lifting each other up. And you don't find that in a kind of like weight-centric approach. Yeah, it's something really lovely and something we'll need when we come from that kind of background as well. So
yeah, absolutely.
Great. Let's move into the question. I'm going to read it word for word from one of our lovely community members. She said, I am feeling scared about my inability to do what I know helps me in feeling good and manage my good eating habits. How do I stop the craving for comfort food all the time? So I'm sure you've got lots of really, really lovely things to share with this member. So go ahead.
I think the first thing I would like to explore is what you're scared of and what that fear actually is. If it's falling back into the old diet mentality, if that's the reasons, I think that's a really important part of that question. But the thing that I would say is that it's okay to, you know, eat comfort foods and to use food, you know, for comfort. Like emotional eating gets such a bad rap, but you know, there's actually nothing wrong with emotional eating, and food can be a great source of comfort if we need it. It's only if it becomes your only source of comfort then it can get a little bit tricky. But you know, during the time of COVID and all the stress and everything, like, it's perfectly normal to be emotionally eating right now and craving all that comfort food. So I think just give yourself a little bit of compassion there and a bit of kindness around that. But I'd also like to say if are these foods, if it's something that you're maybe labeling them as, you know, bad foods, or you said like comfort foods, what's your kind of perception of that? Because even just, you know, labeling them bad, or the way that we think about them, or even just thinking in any way of restricting them can lead to you know, cravings and wanting them more. It's when we sort of see foods as neutral and give ourselves unconditional permission to eat all those foods, that the foods then lose their power. So that's, I think, a really good point. It's just sort of, you might not even realize that you might be in that mentality, but sometimes we don't realize that we still have those food labels there, or, you know, or even, you know, thinking about, oh, you know, I shouldn't have that, I shouldn't have this, then that again will lead to those cravings. But my tips I would say with that is, first of all, I would check in and, you know, look at what you're eating, and if you're eating enough satisfying foods during the day. And, you know, the really important part of intuitive eating that kind of sometimes gets missed is it's not just about eating to fullness, it's about eating for pleasure and eating for satisfaction. And, you know, you could eat say, as an example, a big bowl of veggies, and you feel physically full afterwards, but are you going to feel satisfied? Well, no. So I think, you know, it's really important that you're eating for pleasure as well as, you know, for satisfaction and pleasure and for fullness. But so I think that's a really important part. And also sort of check in with your self-care to see how that is, because I do find that I definitely comfort eat or stress eat when my self-care is really, really lacking. So that's when I normally take a step back and looking on my sleep, you know, book in some, I think we talked a little bit about this last week, get out in nature, you know, book in some fun things, if you can, with your friends, like some good FaceTime chats, and you know, you can do some online trivia and things like that. At the moment there's lots going on.
We've been doing that. It's super fun. Yeah.
So just book in some of those and really sort of take a step back and look at what your self-care has been like as well, because that's that could be an indicator that you might just need to prioritize yourself a little bit more. And the other thing I would say is just have a look at some other coping mechanisms as well. Like, if it's, you know, like, I just want to say that if you want to comfort eat, then please do comfort eat, you know, that's totally okay. But if, you know, if it's not something it's something that is bothering you, I would you know, think of some other things that can help, if it's calling a friend or having a bath or going for a walk instead when these feelings come up.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And there's a lot of things that you said there that just like rang a bell to me as well. And when you talked about the food like losing its power, I think it's really important to recognize that when you talk about letting go of like giving yourself that unconditional permission to eat, it can be really terrifying, right? Like, really, for somebody who is new to this kind of work, and especially for somebody who's got a background with dieting and used to rules and restriction and everything, this idea about you know, not knowing how to stop themselves from comfort eating, and the fear of kind of giving unconditional permission to eat can feel like it would be out of control eating and that. But what you shared around the food losing power, that's the kind of pattern that happens. And so many of us have been through this path where you start to, when you do give yourself the unconditional permission, and it can take time, but slowly, those kind of behaviors and that drive towards the comfort food or the cravings can soften, and that's how it feels, like the food is just, it doesn't have that same power over you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also perfectly normal in the beginning stages of intuitive eating to want to eat those foods all the time, because when we've restricted something for so long, and that's just a natural reaction, but that phase does pass. I think they call it Donutland. I think
that Jes Baker, she talks about Donutland versus Dietland, and it's actually a really good analogy. I always think about this, and that pendulum, the sway, where if you've spent all this time in Dietland, like restricting, then you're often going to swing back into Donutland, like that kind of binging and eating all the things. And it can feel like these really big sways, but then as you get more and more accustomed to giving yourself unconditional permission and listening into your body, and that's your body physically, sure, but also like mentally and sort of emotionally, like satiating yourself across all those planes. And then you kind of bounce around a little bit, Dietland to Donutland, and then you kind of pop down somewhere and your sways are less intense, I guess. Yeah, that's a great analogy. I like that one.
And I think that's it. And just knowing that it is okay, you know, to like you say, swing over to Donutland. I mean, I did it. My thing was actually jars and jars of peanut butter. Like I ate them for months and months and months, and I was like, oh. And now they just sit in my cupboard untouched, which was something I never thought would happen. And I've a lot of clients I've worked with have had it with chocolate, where they just thought they're, you know, oh, I'm just eating chocolate, and I'm just like, you know, just keep giving yourself unconditional permission to eat, and and it does eventually pass. I know sometimes it feels like that stage won't get, you know, doesn't hurry through. It will. Yeah,
I had a bit of a thing with ice cream, and you know, I still emotionally eat ice cream. Like, it's still something that I'll go to, and I just don't have the judgment and the fear around it now, because I know that it's as somebody who has this kind of background, I think you might find this too. A lot of us do have a really close kind of relationship with emotional eating as a coping mechanism. People who have that experience with dieting. So I guess I'm trying to say, be compassionate, because whatever experience you've had in the past might influence us now. But knowing that that swing is all part of it.
Absolutely. And I think you said something really key there, which is, you know, letting go of that judgment. I know it's hard. We can be really hard on ourselves, but that is such a key part of this journey as well, is, you know, treat yourself as you would your loved ones, and, you know, just being kind and compassionate to yourself.
Yeah, beautiful. That's all really great advice. And the things that you mentioned about, you touched on intuitive eating too, like, you know, hunger and fullness being a part of intuitive eating. And like you said, it is a part, but also pleasure and all of that. And I think what people forget is that intuitive eating also has room for like flexibility with food, and in the sense that, you know, your lifestyle changes day to day, and certainly right now our lifestyle is completely different to what it was 6 months ago. So it's about, you know, having that flexibility to adapt to. So I remember when I first started getting into this work and having trouble trying to explain to members, to people, about how could you be intuitive with eating and plan for your food, for, you know, like being prepared for your work day and that. And I guess what I learned from that was, there is this flexibility with intuitive eating. It's not like, you can still kind of be organized and prepare things.
Absolutely.
And be knowing what suits your lifestyle, or what things you enjoy in that, and having some awareness of nourishment if you want to take that on too. But having a flexibility with it, so it's not rigid.
That's it. I know if you don't want to eat those things, or you've taken something to work but you want to go out and buy something instead, then that's intuitive eating. And I always find, like, with that's you know, like, the rather than with the diet mentality with meal prep, where it's like, you know, all or nothing, with intuitive eating it's always, everything's a form of self-care. So, you know, it's also self-care to be prepared when hunger strikes, or, you know, if you know you've got a busy week ahead, if you need to have some sort of organization and preparation, that's, you know, that's a part of self-care too.
That's a really good point. Beautiful. So to sum up, can you wrap up your main tips for us just really quickly, so we have them fresh on the tip of our tongue?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing I would say was just to sort of maybe look into what that fear is, if it's going back to dieting or the diet mentality. Also, if you're putting any labels on those foods, or even just, you know, thinking about restricting them again, that can cause more cravings. And then to look at what you're eating during the day. If you're eating stuff that not only is making you physically full, but that you actually enjoy, that satisfies you and is really pleasurable as well. And then have a look at your self-care, see how, you know, if that's been lacking, and, you know, look at your sleep and book in some fun things with friends, and then find some other coping mechanisms as well, like when those cravings do come up, like I said, it's okay if you do want to eat, and absolutely give yourself permission to do that. But if it's something, if it's not what you want to do, then maybe can you have a bath or call a friend, like something else that, you know, feels good to you.
Yeah, beautiful. And I'll just touch on one thing there, and this is something I learned from one of the coaches I worked with, and that was around that self-care aspect. And sometimes it's we might want the food, but also there might be another coping mechanism that we can do as well. And so it can be helpful to not think of the food or something else. It could be both. And
both. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, it can be both. You can have the food and then call a friend, and
and it's about looking at what's going to really satisfy your needs, your emotional needs and your physical needs, not just choosing one thing to try to stop you from feeling emotions or something. So can you share with us where we can find you and what's the best kind of social media or platform to catch up?
Yeah, so Instagram's definitely the place that I'm most active, and that is Shreen_be free, which I'm sure you're can link to.
I'll link to, yeah.
That'd be the best place to find me.
Beautiful. We will come and say hello online, and as you know, we'll have another question for you next week, so we'll get to catch up again then.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks so much, Hannah.
Take care. Speak next week.
Take care. Cheers.
Thanks,
Bye.